Oma Guru Vajradhara Sumati Munishasan Uta Vardanya Shriba Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Oma Guru Vajradhara Uta Vardanya Shriba Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Oma Guru Vajra Timunisha Sane Karm Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Oma Guru Vajra Dara Suma Timunisha Sane Karm Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Omo A Guru Vajra Dara Suma Timunisha Nishri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Om Guru Vajra Shasane Karma Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Om Guru Vajra Dara Suma Timunisha Sane Karma Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Om Guru Vajra Dara Suma Timunisha Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Pakyuke kudan dagi lo, pakyuke sungdan dagi nga, pakyuke tukdan dagi yi, tön yerme çıktı çingi lo, makyuke ku. Makyuke sungdan dagi nga, makyuke Dagi tön yerme çıktı çingelo Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Shakya Muni Swaha Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Shakya Muni Swaha Om Mahamuni Shakya Muni Swaha Sashi Pöke Chukshi Meto Chan Rirav Lingshi Nide Gembadi Sangye Shindo Mikde Ulwargi Drogu Namda Shingla Chöpar Sho Yidamang Guru Ratna Mindrala Kam Niryata Yami Sangye Chedan Soge Chonam La Chancho Pardo Dani Kyapsochi Dagi Chushe Gibe Sonam Ki Drola Pinchra Sangye Drupar Sho Sangye Chedan Soge Chonam La Chancho Pardo Dani Kyapsochi Dagi Chinso Gibe Sonam Ki Drola Pinchra Sangye Drupar Sho Sangye Chedan Soge Chonam La Chancho Pardo Dani Kyapsochi Dagi Chishe Gibe Sonam Ki Drola Pinchra Sangye Drupar Sho
In the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, I take refuge until enlightenment. Through the practice of generosity and the other perfections, may I obtain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings.
Namo yal haye ke da luda ne jinge rubunda da mi ke namda rowa kuinge dhanama chi tsampa thamche ke to da gi chete. Riprendiamo la immagine.
Let's take back again the image from which we started in the previous session to make a journey. We say that the first thing that we should do in order to leave and go somewhere is to decide where we want to go. And that often in this process we need to go somewhere that's also influenced by recognizing that one is not well where one is. So once we have seen samsara, we have had the courage to look at ourselves in our eyes and to see our mental defilements and to say, okay, I want to go towards the so-called nirvana, to reach this inner peace. I want to go on this path, and I rely on Buddha, on his teachings, so the Dharma, and to the Sangha, and to the Guru also as embodiment of Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, and I go on this path, a whole journey starts. It's a long journey. It's not like just going from here to there. You need to walk a lot. And when we make a journey, often, or actually always, things don't go smoothly. I don't know. To me, on all the journeys I made until today, and I had many, there is always like something that doesn't really go as planned. It's like something delayed here, the other thing that goes in another way there. There is always something wrong. And when we find ourselves in a journey and there is like something that is not how we would like it to be, a difficulty or something, this could or not stop our journey, and these are called interferences. The word interference in Tibetan is parche. Par means in between two things, and che means to cut. I think it's very similar to our word to interfere, something that doesn't allow me to reach something else. So I want to go from here until that place. There is something that doesn't allow me to go on, and this is an interference. Interferences in general are of three kinds. External interferences, and by that we mean situations that don't depend directly on us and with which we relate, that are the behaviors of other people, environmental situations, social situations, spirits, beings around us of all kinds. External interferences can be of many kinds. So I set myself a goal and I go to do that, and in between other things happen don't allow me to go on with what I set myself to do. And that is an interference. And then there are inner interferences. By that we mean that we change our mind, our fears, our laziness, our uncertainty, anger, envy, forgetfulness, and at a certain point some inner movements happen that don't allow us to follow that path, that journey that we set ourselves to do. And then there are secret interferences. Secret interferences are those that manifest to us as positive things and that actually are also positive things, but that in any way they become an interference for something else. Sometimes is used the story of Butön Rinchen Drub, a master in Tibet, a long while before Lama Tsongkhapa, so we're talking about the 11th, 13th century, and he had a level of knowledge that was huge on many subjects. He also had a capacity of memorization that was incredible. He dedicated part of his time to memorize books. So during the day, every day, he will memorize 100 pages, so 100 so like so imagine like he memorized every day 100 pages during the day, 100 pages during the night. So during the night he had like a room, and he had like 2 copies of the books that he wanted to memorize, and no one could get into that room. And before going to sleep, he would put all the pages like on one side and on the other side, spread on the floor, 500 pages, and he would go to sleep. And during the night, he would go out of his body and he would memorize them. And so he woke up and he had memorized those pages. And then during the day, he would sit there and he would memorize those pages again. And then at a certain point of his life, an event occurs where someone strange comes to him and brings him as an offering like paper and ink, which in Tibet was extremely costly. We're talking about the 13th century, so the paper was extremely expensive, also ink very difficult to find, and they make him this offering, and he perceives that as an auspicious sign that he has to write. And in that moment, he was just about to do a retreat, a meditation, and he wanted to, because he had a lot of knowledge and he wanted to put that into practice, to meditating. And so he was like, no, I need to write, I will meditate later. So he started to write what his knowledge was, but it was a lot of knowledge, so eventually he wrote more than 100 volumes. And even when he was writing, at a certain point, he built a stupa, not huge but also not very small, and he would go around the stupa, and in every corner of the 4 directions of the stupa he left an attendant, and they would write for him. And so he was simultaneously writing 4 books. As he was walking around the stupa, he would tell like to someone a certain sentence of a certain book, then he would go around and another sentence of another book, and so on. And that's how he wrote 100 volumes. So it came to my mind like that a while ago I heard about Pope Francis that was reading two books at the same time. The most difficult book, he was reading it himself. The easiest one, he had someone else to read it at the same time. So someone will read out loud a book and at the same time was reading another book on different subjects. So these are qualities that also exist in modern times. And in this way, he wrote 100 volumes. The masters that came after him, some said, look, Butön Rinchen Drub, what he did was the fact that writing all of that was a secret interference, because he was already in a level that if he had dedicated that time to meditate, probably he could have reached the state of Buddhahood in that lifetime. But instead of that, he was just writing, so he was not able to reach that state in his lifetime. So that's an example that is given as a secret interference. So is it a positive thing to write? Yes, but if he had reached Buddhahood, it would have been better. So it was an interference for that, which doesn't mean that it was a negative thing. So very often a person that reaches a good knowledge of Dharma and is ready to meditate well then it's called to do many things that are good but don't have such a deep meaning and benefit, and this is called a secret interference. Let's say that we should worry mostly about the inner interferences. The external interferences, usually we just also already try to avoid them. But here there is a fundamental point. I make an example. I'm walking. I want to go to bed. Halfway, there is someone coming and wanting to talk to me. But me, not only I want to go to bed, but also I need to get there at a certain time because I want to take the bus or whatever. And so that person at that moment wants to talk to me is an interference. Not in the sense that it's bad and ugly, but it's an interference in order to get on time where I want to get to. So what happens is that as I'm walking, if I see that person as an interference, the fact that I have to talk with that person as an interference, I would try to overcome them. I'm sorry, I would say in this moment I cannot talk, we'll talk another time. I will find a way to overcome that interference and to get on time anyway. But if I let myself to be dragged by that person, by that conversation, and maybe I also get into conflict, no, I need to go, and I let myself to be taken by that, then the interference drags me away. One of the mistakes that often we do is to not see interferences as interferences, but actually we see an interference as something to be followed. An interference is something that is there and needs to be overcome, not something that one should give space and time to. So there is like a place where interferences exist when there is a goal, when there is a direction. If there is no direction, then there is also not an interference, it's just a difficulty, because it's not interfering with anything. But when we have a spiritual path, we have a direction, we have a program to be followed, so to speak, a project, and there are things in between that bring our attention somewhere else. We need, at our best, to, how can I say, to recognize what the priorities are.
Faccio un esempio.
Make an example. There's more
come obiettivo, non voglio arrabbiare.
About the practice deeper. So I set myself as a goal, okay, I don't want to get angry. I don't want to lose my balance. I see that anger is harmful. I have a whole discourse around this that we don't need to get into now. And I get to the conclusion, whatever happens, I will not get angry. So I set myself that goal, that is to keep my balance, to not lose the control of my speech and my actions, to really practice patience and to not react with aggressiveness in front of the objects of anger. And then what happens? Everything just goes smoothly, or will there be some interferences for this goal? Many. So at that point someone says something, someone else says something else, and this and that. If I see that situation as an interference to that goal, I will say, I will not follow you. My goal to maintain my balance, to practice patience, to maintain my calmness, to not lose control, is greater than what you say or what you do. So I create distance, inner distance first of all, from what you're saying, doing. I don't give you such an importance. For me, my calmness, my balance is more important than what you say or do. So it's an interference and needs to be treated as such, shouldn't be followed. If, on the other hand, I get into that game and I lose my goal, then at that point the interference becomes what we follow, the point that we follow.
Le interferenze certe volte sono anche
Interferences sometimes are also pleasant. To me, makes me remember a very dear friend of us that died a while ago, was called Peter, which was called Pete, was English and had been a monk for a few years here. Someone hears the recording of the self-healing in English. There is that very English accent, and that was his voice. And when he was driving, every time there was going on the same route, the time was different. Sometimes it will go to Milan.
No, sono partito stamattina.
Maybe you arrived like at 4, and so you left after lunch. No, I left this morning. So he did it like this. At a certain point, it was going. You will read like a name of a nice town that he didn't know, maybe Dormeletto, I don't know, like a funny name. And then he sees that and decides to go just out and to see something. And he always liked to change like routes, so take different ways, also going from here to England. So sometimes he needed like 14 hours, sometimes 27, sometimes 50, depending on the route that he would take. And it comes to my mind this thing that one is going as a goal, and then in the middle is like a nice place and stays there, and that's an interference for what he's doing. Interferences are not always unpleasant and are not necessarily something bad. It's something that blocks us along a path. And I repeat one last time, and interferences need to be seen as such. Very often in the teachings is quoted the importance of not following interferences and to be able to face them. Because it's normal along our paths to have some interferences. The key point to not follow an interference is to maintain clear our direction, where we are going, to not lose our goal. Then along the way there could be like easier days, more difficult days, and, like in this last journey that we made in Mongolia, it's a good example, because we had to go from here to there. Then in the middle the bus broke down a few times, was stuck in the mud and in terrible situations, and the attitude of our Mongolian friends was like, okay, they wouldn't talk, no one was like swearing or complaining, they would just all get up and fix together the problem, then they would go back and go on. No one would say, but why this bus, no one fixed the road and this and that, nothing. There was just like a problem, you will fix the problem and then you will go on. And also when our buses were both stuck in the mud and we had to go in the first monastery. And then at a certain point we go down and there was like a lot of mud. There was no actual road, and so like in the open space everyone would just go wherever they wanted. And so you would see like the bus sliding on the side, and it was dangerous. The drivers were very good, but in any case we thought, okay, from here we will not move on anymore. Okay, and then we thought we need to go to the monastery, let's go. I checked the GPS, we still had 24 kilometers by feet, and so okay, let's walk. How long do we need? Maybe 6 hours? No one is dying. No one is going to die. Then it started to be dark. Someone said, okay, there are wolves. Then there was the problem that there was a lot of mud and one was sleeping at some point, and then but the most beautiful thing was that, okay, whatever happens, we go on. Then we had some cars picking us up back and forth. Someone walked a bit more, someone walked less. Me, I was among the last ones taking the car because I wanted to make sure that everything was more or less okay. And then eventually also the luggage came. Then at a certain point a truck, like a 6 wheels, like a Mercedes, like a very huge thing with all our luggage inside. Where did that thing appear from? I don't know. It was seemed like a miracle, but the reality is that when there is a goal and someone maintains a goal, will there be difficulties on the way? Yes, definitely. An example that we all know is in a human relationship among two people. When we start a relationship with someone, there is a goal together, maybe between parents or friends, husband, wife, doesn't matter. There is a path to be followed together. Will everything go smoothly? Absolutely not. But we have a common goal, shared goal, which is the most important thing. So when there are difficulties, the interferences, they need to be seen as interferences, something to be abandoned, not to be followed. You shouldn't drop the goal because there is the difficulty.
Questo è fondamentale. Poi ci sono le interferenze.
Then there are interferences that we are not able to see. And when it happens, we should rely upon someone that is able to see them. Because otherwise, how do I do it? And this, since the time of Buddha, there are those that are called protectors of Dharma. And the Sanskrit term is Dharmapala. Tibetan Chokyong. Cho Dharma and Gyong to protect, to sustain. Dharmapalas are beings that don't have a physical body and so that relate with the invisible world, because they also are part of that world, and that take the commitment of protecting the practitioners of Dharma from subtle interferences of this invisible world that there could be. So if we look at the door of the temple, there are the four protectors of the four directions that come from the time of Buddha. In all Buddhist temples in China or India and Tibet and so on, there are those four protectors. Also, if we go in the temples of China, we will see at the beginning also huge statues, very beautiful, of these four protectors. There are the protectors of the four cardinal directions. And then, as Buddhism spread and came to Tibet and so on, one of the important things, actually of minor importance but still that is important, is the Dharmapala. That is the function to protect the practitioner for subtle interferences. So because I'm unable to see them, there is someone that sees them for me. Why? Because those are beings that committed to protect Dharma and see the importance of the practice of Dharma, and they believe in the same path, and so they say, okay, we help those that are on this path. That's what it means in a few words. And all monasteries in Tibet, from the first one to the last one, independently from the tradition, Nima, Kagyu, Sakya, and so on, I never seen one monastery that didn't have like a small temple of the protector of the Dharma. And so that's the function. Maybe someone could say, but how can I rely upon a protector? And okay, first of all, one shouldn't worry too much about that, because anyway, that's like okay, the main masters rely on this level of protection to a certain Dharmapala, and naturally all the disciples come under their protection. So in order for one to be protected, should be one thing: practice well, with sincerity. That is the real thing that one should do. Because if the protector of the Dharma doesn't protect people that belong to a group, but protects the practice of Dharma. Sometimes there are interpretations that are very wrong, that these beings, protectors, deities, are like, okay, one does like prayers to earn some things and mundane things, and that they also help for that, but that is not so. The function of Dharmapala is to help a practitioner to not have interferences on a subtle level of the subtle world. That is the main function. And usually the protectors of Dharma are inherited by the master. So every monastery has its protectors. One becomes part of that monastery and kind of inherits those protectors, and the same from the master to the disciples and so on. And because Dharma protectors are beings that don't have a physical body, rarely, but it exists, there are manifestations of these beings through a physical body. That is what is called an oracle. For example, Dalai Lama is the oracle of Nechung, that is the oracle of the Tibetan. But there are many oracles in Tibet. Is a tradition that is getting lost more and more. And in our lineage, I've seen many oracles in my life, and let's remember that the oracle is not something. What is the main difference? In some traditions, one relies completely on some entities. In Buddhism, one relies on Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and then there are certain entities that help on this process, but one doesn't take refuge on them directly. I don't know if the difference is clear. Because one thing is whether I go to someone and I say, okay, I rely on you, I want this, you give me that, and we create an interdependent relationship. The other thing, I rely on my guru, I rely on Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and then there are the Dharmapalas that sustain this path. And so for that, in the center of Albagnano, the protectors of the Dharma that come from our lineage of Lama Ganchen, there is Palden Lamo and Dorje Shugden. Those are the two protectors that Lama Ganchen received from his masters, that in turn from Butön Rinchen Rinpoche and Pabongka Rinpoche and so on. And those are those that still today we keep on. So in this moment that we had this morning, there was this moment where we called this entity, this Dharmapala, because so that we that have a physical body can somehow get in touch. And this is because we, without having a physical contact, we have a hard time. And there are many stories, many beautiful things around this. But very often the most important thing is that one has his own experience. And as I said yesterday, oracles in this tradition, there are two in the world. I don't know if there would be others after them, because at the moment there aren't any other educational processes of this kind. It's not like you decide, okay, I want to be the oracle. It doesn't work like that. Also, when I was talking with the Kunsang Lama yesterday, he said, I never wanted to be an oracle. And then there is a whole process where you open the channels, and it's a complex process that also very few people are able to do. So I don't know if tomorrow, for how long will this last or not. For example, Kyabche Trije Rinpoche, of which we have the picture there on the throne, he was telling me once that when he, in these kind of ceremonies with the oracle, and he has to ask something, he does it like this. Also to make sure that everything is right. First, before the ceremony at home, he writes down his questions, he puts them on the altar, he makes the prayer to the protector of the Dharma, and in his mind he invokes him, and he asks the questions and the requests. Then when the moment with the oracle comes, which is another place, then he said, okay, I already gave you the questions, give me the answers. And usually they come. Rinpoche told me many stories of him. Also, when he was a child and he was studying, he could memorize very quickly. He had a photographic memory, so he had to memorize a certain number of rows on a certain day, and the way of studying, that way of studying, there is a lot of the part of memorization. So he didn't say that he was so able to memorize, and it was just taking some time. So he was like studying, and then he had already, he would read maybe twice, and he had already learned it. but his master will go out to do some commission and something, and then he will be playing. The problem will be if his master will come back and he didn't recognize, and then he will be punished. But what happened is that, okay, he could memorize very quickly, and when he was playing, when his master will come back, someone will knock coming from the altar, and every time that this happened, and then he will go back to memorize. He told many stories about this kind, and the thing mostly is that we need to have clarity about our path and to allow ourselves to have some new experiences.
E l'altra cosa
The
importantissima
other important thing is that when we talk about all these other aspects that are there, for example, there are some practices dedicated also to Yang Drub. We will also do it this Wednesday. We will start with that for 3 days.
Yang Drub
is a practice that we do here once a year. All monasteries in Tibet do this once a year. This is the most normal thing that there is. Yang is a word for which there isn't translation, but is like a sort of energy of wealth, of prosperity, and it's seen that prosperity, wealth, doesn't depend on something material, but there is something behind it. There is this yang, this sort of energy that sustains prosperity. When there is yang, then at this point there can be prosperity. If there is not that, then it's difficult. So these are practices to increment this type of energy, to call it back, to increase. Why does a Buddhist center need to do a practice to increment prosperity, the energy of prosperity? Because at the end of the month, you cannot go to NL, okay, we pay you with prayers.
Oh no.
Isn't it?
Qualcuno che lavora nel centro.
Someone that works at the center, look, you received a lot of teachings. The person says, yes, I'm grateful, but who's going to pay the rent? We live in a material world, where also this is necessary. What is one of the great mistakes that sometimes we do, from which we need to protect ourselves? That in a context like ours, the direction, the goal is not to the material gain. The material reality is nothing else but a tool that is necessary for our path. It's like in our life. If I don't have the money to get my basic necessities of life, then my energy is taken from that. I would like to see someone meditating when someone is knocking to your door, asking you to pay debts. It's more difficult. So it's always important to maintain clear what is our direction.
Il rifugio.
And that's okay. And for this we go back to refuge. Refuge always means to take refuge on Dharma. Like I said before, is not a formality, is a deeper act. To conclude the part of the refuge, I would like to go through the various points that Pabongka Rinpoche describes here.
Poi ho aperto questo testo.
Then I opened this text. This book here is big, but also letters are big.
Che mi è stato regalato.
It was given to me as a present from a friend, from a disciple of Tibet, Lobsang, of the monastery of Nyemogyachen. And he, the last time that I was in Tibet, he gave me this text saying, okay, I made this print, also still in a traditional way, where for every page, like a wooden matrix is made, so it's printed by hand on rice paper, and it was done. It was made in the monastery of Lama Tsongkhapa, so and it's the Lamrim of Lama Tsongkhapa. So he gave this to me, and he said, okay, and he asked me to promise, okay, will you use it for to give the Lamrim teachings? So Okay, at least I open it. So if we start to read this together, I will get you bored in a non-indifferent way.
Riprendiamo dal testo che ce l'abbiamo già direttamente in italiano.
So let's start with the Italian text that we have here. One of the important things is that comes as important is, okay, to identify the characteristics of Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, the distinctions of activity, attitude, practice, distinctions related to memory and about one's own merits. Let's go through it quickly. Identification of the distinctive characteristics. How can I distinguish what is the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha? Buddha, as the main characteristic of a Buddha, is someone that has eliminated completely his mental defilements and has developed to the maximum of the potential, the qualities. And here we have a little problem. How can I know that he is a Buddha? Isn't it? Okay, because I could say, yeah, I understood that it more or less is a Buddha, because what are all the qualities that need to be developed? But how can I look at someone and say, okay, this is a Buddha and this is not? Okay, so let's start from the fact that we are not able to judge who we have in front in general. Buddhas can manifest in the most various way, because what is the action of a Buddha? To teach Dharma, to guide beings along a path of development. I had this luck of this experience that I shared many times that impressed me deeply, where once that I was in a beach, in a place, an island, and I thought, okay, I want to go to that beach. It was a faraway beach. Okay, I go there, and along the way I stopped. There was someone selling coconut. I really like coconut water, fresh coconut water. I stopped, and I asked, okay, can I have one? And they tell me the price. No, no, thank you. It was like out of the world. It was like $25 a coconut. Okay, no, there is no such a strong need. Okay, let's go on. Then I get to that faraway beach, and I needed to walk like 40 minutes or something like that. And as I'm walking, I'm getting to the beach, which also was not even beautiful, but that's another thing. And I get there to the beach, and there was one man selling coconut, and it seemed strange. It was really like there was no one there. It was like here, no one is coming here. So how expensive could coconut be? And I asked him, and the price was like decent. I say, okay, can you give me a coconut? And gives me the coconut, and then I remain quite paralyzed in front of this man. It was like a dark man, maybe he was like 50 or 60 years old, something like that. And the presence of that man told me something extremely important. I don't know, I can't also describe it so much with words, but he showed me the union of dignity with humility in a crazy way, just with his presence. And I remember that I was in the presence of that man and I didn't want to go away. At a certain point I asked him, what is your name? Like a child looking up. What is your name? Just to say something. Michel, he said. Okay. Not easy just to find someone that has my name around. And then I was on the other side of the world where you don't speak French, and then I was like a bit like that, and then I went away. And also today I get emotional because that person with his presence, not with something else, not with words or something that he did, just with his presence, told me something that 1,000 words couldn't have done. And if we read biographies of the masters of once a time, and you will and if we put it like in those words, you would say Lama was guided by his intuition and went towards that beach, and as he was there was the emanation of the Buddha that manifested as the coconut seller, knowing that he had attachment to coconut. Because if he was selling like watermelon, I wouldn't have gone to him in the same way. So or maybe like at the beer stand, I wouldn't have gone to him. So Buddha, knowing how much I liked coconut, manifested in that way in order to give me that lesson. But what I know is that when we are open, we never know who we have in front. We never really know. There is a very important sutra that is called Gandavyuha. In Borobudur, Indonesia, is representing the first layer that now you can't see anymore. Okay, there is the sutra talking about the law of cause and effect. Then there is the sutra talking about the life of Buddha that we also have here. Then there is this other sutra. There is the life of that talks about the life of a practitioner that goes to Manjushri, to his master, that teaches him a certain part of his path, and then sends him to another master and another master. He meets like 108 masters, half men, half women, in the most various contexts. Some masters were formal, others were like there was like the girl that was serving serving food, or the most various contexts. And this also to show us, okay, Borobudur shows, okay, the law of karma, and then it's possible to get out of samsara. Buddha did it, and then this other story that is like everyone can do it. And so there is like a place of openness. I don't know who I have in front of me. I don't know the means to say, okay, he has the qualities, doesn't have the qualities. But what I've seen in my life is that if I open up to relate with the qualities in a certain way, then I'm able to receive. Which doesn't mean that we should see everyone as if everyone was like a perfect Buddha and to follow everyone in anything, but so we should have discernment, but still openness, and this is an important thing. And then there is a logical process. Okay, what is the action of Buddhas? What do Buddhas do? Once that one reaches enlightenment, what does one do? Just goes on vacation, just enjoys enlightenment, follows his desires. And what is the stronger desire that a Buddha has? That beings are free from suffering. And in order to get out of being, to help a being to get out of suffering, there are 4 ways to do it that start from one only way, that is interaction. The 4 ways of interaction are, okay, a Buddha helps beings by helping them materially, because the first necessity that we all have is material. If I am hungry, I will not be able to practice Dharma. I will be able to do that, but it's very difficult. To help by giving love, and then by giving protection and by giving Dharma, because before one is able to receive Dharma, the spiritual path, first he needs to have the other necessities covered. So Buddhas manifest themselves by helping beings. The most excellent way to help beings is to give them Dharma. So one of the logics that are given is that, okay, the function of Buddhas, the action of a Buddha is to teach a Dharma. Who teaches the Dharma to me is doing the action of a Buddha. So I don't have the way, the means to say, okay, it's like this or not like that, but if I have the openness, then I can connect with many beings, also with very special qualities. Personally, I had many experiences in my life where I was in the presence of beings that one feels the difference when one is in their presence. There is like something really special. And so we're talking about with this we're talking about the characteristic of a Buddha. Then the characteristics that distinguish the Dharma is the fact that the Dharma is what the Buddha teaches to help beings to get out of suffering, and the Sangha is the spiritual community, the community of those that put in practice those teachings. When we talk about the activity, okay, the activity of a Buddha is to teach the Dharma. The activity of the Dharma is about eliminating the mental defilements and to develop inner qualities. Also there, if I want to check, okay, am I practicing Dharma well or not? My mental defilements have decreased. My inner qualities like love, patience, and so on have increased. In other words, do I react in the same way in similar situations, or did I learn something, actually? If I see that my mental defilements decreased, it means that I'm practicing correctly. If, on the other hand, I see that the more I practice Dharma and the more I become a Buddhist, become more arrogant because I am on the right path and you're not, and the more I have more my attachment increasing and so on, it means that I'm not practicing Dharma. This is the fundamental point. And the activity of the Sangha is about encouraging the others to practice. The function of the activity of the Sangha is to encourage one the other and to sustain one the other to practice. What is the attitude that we should have about Buddha, Dharma and Sangha? It's the same attitude that we should have in front of a boatman. So if I want to cross like an ocean or something dangerous and I get into a boat, first of all I need to trust the captain. Because if I don't trust the person that is carrying the boat, then it's difficult. So the Buddha is like the captain of the boat and I need to relate to him with trust and respect. Dharma is the boat. So I rely on the boat to make that journey. I rely on the teachings, the practice to make that journey to get out of the so-called cycle of suffering and of the ocean of suffering. And the others that are on the boat with me are the other practitioners with whom I share the journey. So this is the attitude that we should have. Our practice should be lived with this very attitude. So in our daily practice, we should maintain respect towards who is guiding us, to maintain trust towards the practice of Dharma, to maintain friendship and the sustainment towards the others that are following the same path. Then we have the distinctions related to memory. This is about the fact of being able to remember to ourselves the qualities of Buddha, Dharma and Sangha. Why? Because we forget about things. So sometimes to remember ourselves, okay, there are some texts talking about the qualities of Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, and so to go back to that is an important thing. The danger that I see is that these things are so important that became like some rituals. The problem is that sometimes after a long time that something became a ritual, loses the sense, misses the point of that and just becomes a ritual. So it's important for us from time to time to read, to remember about Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, so that thing that at the beginning was about relying then can get weaker after a while. And then we have the distinctions about the increase of our merits, and this is about the fact that as we relate to someone that is spiritually higher than us, this helps us to generate more virtuous actions. And as we practice a valid spiritual path, this helps us to accumulate more virtuous actions. And the same thing also in relating to a healthy environment. And here actually we could open a whole subject about the fact that we are beings that can easily be influenced. So according to where we are, according to the context in which we find ourselves, we transform ourselves. So sometimes I hear like, okay, you see, like that person is not honest with me, and when he's with others he changes. That's the most normal thing, the fact that we are differing with someone or someone else. So here there is something else that I wouldn't like to talk too much about it now, but that is to abandon friendships that are misguiding. So, and they are divided between 2 or 3 types. Friendships where that relationship that is pleasant that interaction of that friendship. Okay, there is a case where that increases our qualities, and those are virtuous friendships. Then there are friendships that don't increase the qualities and also not increase the negativities, kind of neutral friendships. And there are some friendships where the relationship with the other person makes our bad qualities increase. And it's not that that person is bad, is mean, or but I cannot relate to that person in an unhealthy way. So the fact that I relate with that person, it increases some habits that I actually want to abandon. So on more gross levels, this could happen with alcohol or various aspects of the conduct. Maybe I have a lot of pleasure in meditating, a lot of pleasure to study something about Dharma and do positive action and so on. And someone that is a friend of mine could say, okay, then just let it be, let's go and watch a football match, and nothing against that, but if it's like a constant thing that brings me away from a virtuous thing, then becomes like a misleading friendship. And at the same time, there are positive friendships, and ideally that is the view of the Sangha, that not always the idealized Sangha is not necessarily that we are already there. When someone says, but you're a Buddhist, you shouldn't get angry. I've heard this many times, not to me, because my weak points are others. When someone says, you're Buddhist, you shouldn't get angry, the answer should be, okay, I get angry because I'm a Buddhist, because if I was like a Buddha, then I wouldn't need to be a Buddhist. In the sense that the Buddhist is not that who has already arrived, but who wants to arrive. So in the middle, one has to work. So I am in the Sangha, my goal is to sustain in a virtuous way the others with which I interact. In order to take refuge, it's important to develop faith in the three jewels, and here we have
la fede che il Buddha è colui
faith that the Buddha is that who teaches how to take how to find refuge, how to take refuge, and the faith that the Dharma is the effective refuge, and the faith that the Sangha is made up of the companions that sustain us as we find refuge. As we said before, faith is to believe in the existent functions and characteristics of something. So the Buddha is who shows me the path. I have faith in that, and the Dharma is the path to be followed, and I have faith in that. And the Sangha is the company that accompanies me along that path, and to have faith in that. And these are the fundamental points to take refuge correctly. Here there is a very delicate point, as it's described. According to me, now we face it, but my instinct is to just skip these pages, because it could be taken in a way that is wrong, but we explain it in the right way. That is, it is said to take refuge, avoiding to rely on other religions. What does this mean? Actually, the term to avoid relying on other religions is wrong, according to me. The problem here is not that. It's not if I see someone wants to follow like a path of Dharma that Buddha transmitted, also because let's remember that the word Buddhism had just been invented recently. Until a while ago, it didn't exist. It's like a Western thing. What existed was like Buddha Dharma and the Dharma of Buddha Shakyamuni. And the path, the spiritual path transmitted by Buddha Shakyamuni. There was not the concept of a religion organized with this identity and everything as we see today. But if we talk about the point of view of the religion, and if we check, okay, the sincere practice of Dharma, who competes really with Buddhism? What are the main competitors?
Competitors?
concorrenti? Chi è che veramente, con chi è che sono? Mica il
It's
cristianesimo,
not really Christianism or Islam or Hinduism.
è il materialismo.
No, it's extreme materialism.
È la visione
It's
dell'utopia
the
materialista, è quella
view
dove
of
uno si perde, è quello che è il
material
vero concorrente.
utopia.
L'obiettivo del buddismo
That
qual
is
è? Che tu sviluppi più amore,
the main
compassione e
competitor,
saggezza.
because the
Se tu
goal of
fai
Buddhism
questo
is
con
that you
l'immagine di
develop
Cristo,
more
ben
love
venga.
and compassion and wisdom. If you do this with the image of Christ,
Non è che il
then
Buddha
that's
è lì che
welcome.
vuole fare
It's not
tanti
that the
buddisti.
Buddha wants to make many little Buddhists.
Se noi andiamo a vedere i testi di Buddha
If
stesso,
we
parla che i Buddha si
read
manifestano
the texts of
in
Buddha
tanti
himself,
forme
he
diverse.
says that Buddhas manifest in many
Addirittura
different
come il
ways,
cocco.
also like as a coconut
Si
seller,
può manifestare in
and
tante religioni,
they
in
can
tanti
manifest in
modi
many
diversi.
many
L'importante è che
different
sia un
religions, many
percorso
different
sincero,
ways. The
reale, per
important thing is
sviluppare
that it's
le nostre
like
qualità interne
a
come
sincere
amore,
path to develop
compassione.
our inner qualities like love and compassion and so on.
Io l'altro giorno stavo anche
The other day,
riflettendo sul
I
fatto,
was
per
also
esempio,
reflecting on,
non voglio dilungarmi, però
I don't want to
il
get too long
concetto
on
di
it, but
altruismo, no?
the concept of
Noi abbiamo
altruism.
per esempio una
Okay,
visione di
for
altruismo
example,
molto
we have a
spesso
view
dal
of
mio punto di
altruism that,
vista,
from my point of view, is
che è che l'altruismo è qualcosa che
equivocal,
per amare gli altri io devo
where
amare
is
me
something
stesso. Io sono convinto che io devo amare
that in
gli
order to
altri
love the others, I
come
need to abandon
un'estensione
myself.
dell'amore che ho
But no,
verso
I
me
need to
stesso,
love
come
the
una
others
bella
as an
metafora.
extension of the love
Se
that I have
dovessimo
towards
mettere in
myself.
parole la voce dell'altruismo
So if I
sarebbe
had to put in words
io
the
ti amo,
the voice
la
of
tua
altruism
felicità è tanto
would be
importante
I
per
love
me
you
quanto
and
la
your
mia.
happiness is as important for me as
Mentre
mine.
stavo riflettendo
And as I
qualche
was
giorno fa
reflecting
su
a few
questo,
days ago on this,
mi è venuto fuori una frase
a sentence came
riguardo a
out
Gesù Cristo.
related to Jesus.
Ama gli
That
altri
is like love the others
come te stesso.
like you will love
La
yourself.
differenza c'è ama gli altri come te
What is the
stesso
difference between
e
that
la tua
and
felicità è tanto
that your
importante per me
happiness is as
quanto la mia.
important for me as
Stiamo
mine?
dicendo la stessa cosa. Quando si dice ama gli altri come te stesso, non sta dicendo abbandona te stesso per amare l'altro.
So when we say love others as much as you love yourself, that doesn't mean that you should abandon yourself to love the others. Then I'm not here to interpret the words of Jesus, but for me it works
Io sono
in that
convinto
sense. And I'm convinced that
che si manifesta
Buddhas and
in
sacred
tanti
beings
modi
manifest in many different ways.
Quando qua nell'Amrim
And
dice,
when
quando
here in the
prendi
Lamrim
rifugio,
we
devi
talk
stare
about
attento a non
refuge,
prendere
okay,
altri rifugi,
you should be
a non
careful to not
abbandonare il tuo
take
rifugio.
also other
Perché
refuges
per arrivare
and
a
not to
prendere
abandon
rifugio
your
in Buddha,
refuge.
Dharma, Sangha,
Because in
prendere
order to
rifugio in
really
Dharma,
take refuge in the
faticoso.
Dharma, that is difficult.
Io sono convinto
And I'm
che uno può
convinced that
prendere
one
rifugio
can
nel
take
Dharma
refuge in the
in forme
Dharma
di tante
in
religioni.
form of many religions. It doesn't have to be Buddhism.
Se qualcuno creasse la nuova religione
Someone will
Mickey
create
Mouse,
the new religion of Mickey Mouse and
che
Minnie,
uno va lì a fare la
where
meditazione
one does the
con
meditation with the black ears
e fa tutte le
and
preghiere
does
a
makes the
Mickey,
prayers
e
to
questo
Mickey
funzionasse
Mouse.
per aiutare
And
a
this
sviluppare
actually
amore,
worked to
compassione,
develop love,
pazienza,
compassion, and
ben
patience,
venga.
and so on, then that's great.
È tanto valido
And
quanto
that's as valid as other things.
o noi siamo qua a pensare
Or
che i
are
Buddha
we
sono buddisti.
here to thinking that the Buddhas are Buddhists?
Quando io guardo l'immagine di
When
Buddha,
I see the image of Buddha,
per me
for me,
qualcuno
someone
queste cose che sto dicendo
with these things that I'm saying
vabbè, poco mi importa.
say that I'm a heretic,
Quando io guardo
but I
l'immagine
care
del
little.
Buddha,
When I
l'immagine
see
di
the
Buddha
image
mi
of a Buddha, the
rappresenta due cose
Buddha
allo stesso tempo.
that represents two things at the same time. Like, okay, many things, but two
Rappresenta lo
things
stato
mostly.
illuminato,
The enlightened state,
rappresenta chi vorrei
who I
essere,
would like to be,
ok? E tutto quello di cui abbiamo
and
parlato,
all that we
ma
have talked
rappresenta
about
anche la mia
in that
propria
sense, but
ignoranza.
also my own ignorance.
Perché?
Why?
Perché io
Because
ho bisogno
I
di una
need
forma così per
a form in order to relate with that. The state of Buddhahood transcends form, transcends the culture, transcends the organization, the institutional organization, and all of that.
Quindi in realtà
So actually,
tutte queste manifestazioni,
all
apparenze
these
che abbiamo, non è che i
manifestations,
Buddha sono
appearances that
così,
we have, it's
nascono
not
nella
that
natura, sono
Buddhas
tutti lì come
are
dei
like
dipinti.
that and they are born in the Pure Lands and they are like that in the
Quello
paintings.
non è altro che un
That is
ponte
nothing
per
else but a
aiutarmi a
bridge in
connettermi
order to
con
help
qualcosa
us
che va al di
to
là della
connect
forma.
with something that is beyond form.
Lo stato di Buddha
The state of
trascende la
Buddhahood
forma.
transcends form.
Lo Non so se è chiaro questo.
Is this clear?
Perciò
And so
uno dei grandi
one
errori
of
che
the
certe
big
volte
mistakes
si
that
commettono nella
sometimes
religione,
are
secondo me,
made in religion
è quell'attitudine
in
di
general
credere
is
di avere la
that
verità in
attitude
tasca.
of believing to have the truth in our
Quindi io
pockets.
sono giusto,
So
tu
I
sei
am right,
sbagliato,
you're
quando in
wrong.
realtà siamo
When
nella stessa
actually we
barca.
are on the same boat.
Siamo nella stessa
We
direzione.
are going on in
Quindi
the same
quando qua
direction.
viene
So
detto,
when
quando uno prende
it is
rifugio,
said here, when one takes
uno deve
refuge,
stare attento ad
one should be
affidare,
careful to not,
a evitare, stare
one
attento ad
should be,
affidarsi ad altre religioni.
should avoid to
Ma la
rely
religione di cui uno
upon
deve stare
other
attento a non
religions.
affidarsi
But the
è
religion
il materialismo
that
estremo,
one should avoid is extreme
che è una
materialism,
religione anche quella,
which is a religion,
anche se non viene chiamata
even
in
if
quel
it's
modo,
not called as such.
ha la sua
It
visione
has
di mondo,
its
le
own
sue regole
view
di
of word, the
condotta,
rules
le
of
sue pratiche da
conduct,
seguire,
practices to be
eccetera.
followed, and so on.
Ok? Perciò
And so
qualcuno mi chiede, ma io
someone could
voglio
say,
seguire il
but I want to
buddismo, ma
follow
allo stesso
Buddhism, but at the
tempo
same
io
time
vado in chiesa.
I go in the
Benissimo,
church.
tutto
Very
bello.
good, I'm happy.
E se avvicinandoti
And
al
if
buddismo
by
questo ti
getting closer to
avvicina ancora
Buddhism that
più
makes you even
alla tua
closer
religione,
to
dove io
your
sono più contento
original
ancora.
religion, I am even happier.
Io l'ultima cosa che
Me,
voglio
the
è
last
vivere in
thing
un mondo
that I
buddista.
want is to live in a Buddhist world.
Sono altre cose che
There
vorrei
are
di meno,
other
però
things that I would like less actually, but
quello che voglio non è l'obiettivo
that
vivere
is
nel mondo
not the
buddista.
goal to live in
L'obiettivo
a
è vivere
Buddhist
in un mondo
world.
dove
The
ci sia
goal is to
amore,
live in a world where there is love and
compassione,
compassion and
saggezza,
wisdom and
rispetto,
respect and gratitude,
unione.
union.
Quello sì.
That, yes,
Dove non dobbiamo
where
chiederci
we
dove sei, cosa non
shouldn't
sei.
ask ourselves where are you from and what are you,
Anche
and
perché io non
let's
credo
go
che
beyond
quando
that, because I
moriamo
also don't
c'è
believe
la
that when we
fila
die there is
preferenziale
like
per i buddisti
the
che passano
preferential
piani di là.
queue for the
Quello che fa la
Buddhists here
differenza
and the
è
Christians
quello che
there.
abbiamo
What
sviluppato
is
dentro di
different,
noi.
what makes a difference is what we developed in the
Perciò
inside.
quando noi dobbiamo stare
So
attenti qua,
what
una
we need
volta
to
che
be
noi prendiamo
careful
rifugio in
here
Buddha, Dharma
is
e
that
Sangha,
once we take refuge in the
la
Buddha,
nostra
Dharma and Sangha, we
veramente
should really
attenti
be careful
a non
to
prendere
not
rifugio
take refuge
in una strada diversa,
in a
qualcosa che è
different path, in something that
principalmente questo
is
stato del materialismo estremo in cui noi
state
viviamo,
of extreme materialism,
o altri
mainly
percorsi che ci tolgono
in
da
which we
questo
live, or
sentiero,
other
se vogliamo,
paths that bring
se
us
fidiamo
away
veramente di questo sentiero.
from our path, if we
Poi
really
qua vengono
trust,
elencati alcuni dei
rely on this
vantaggi,
path.
benefici di
Then
prendere rifugio.
here are listed some of
Anche
the
il
benefits
primo
of taking
è
refuge. Even the
descritto
first
in un
one
modo che
is
può essere
described in a way that
interpretato
could be
sbagliatamente.
interpreted wrongly.
Dobbiamo ricordarci che
We
questo
should remember that
testo
this
è una
book
trascrizione di insegnamenti che sono stati
is a
dati
transcription of
nel
teachings that were given in like the 20th century in Tibet in a very different context from
anche le
ours.
stesse
So
parole
even
hanno
the
un
same
peso
words
diverso.
have a different weight in this context.
Quindi i vantaggi, dico,
So
il primo
the
vantaggio è
advantages,
si diventa
okay,
buddisti.
you become, the first advantage is you become a Buddhist. Okay, why would I care? Okay,
Il punto
the
principale
main
qua
point here
è che
is that
non è che il
it's
fatto
not
di
that the fact
appartenere a
that
un
you
gruppo,
belong to a
è il
group,
fatto di intraprendere
but
un
that
percorso.
you make a journey.
Essere buddista non
To
vuol
be a
dire
Buddhist doesn't
appartenere a
mean to
qualcosa.
belong to something.
Essere buddista
To be a Buddhist
vuol dire
means
intraprendere un
to
percorso.
make a journey.
Io intraprendo quel percorso
Me,
dal
I
momento in cui prendo.
make that journey from the moment that I take refuge.
Poi
And then
viene data molta importanza
a lot of
prendere i vari
importance is
tipologie di
given
voti,
to
voti della
take the various
liberazione
types
personale,
of
voti
vows, so
Pratimoksha,
the
i
Pratimoksha,
voti
the self-liberation
del
vows, then
Bodhisattva,
the
i voti
vows of the
tantrici.
Bodhisattva, tantric
I voti
vows.
è un qualcosa che
Vows
fino a un
are
po' di
something
tempo fa
that
era molto
until
di moda, è uscito di
a
moda.
while ago it was very much in fashion. Now
Qualcosa
it's a
che, per
bit out
esempio,
of
nell'epoca
fashion.
di
For
Pabongka
example,
Rinpoche in
the
Tibet,
time of
prima
Pabongka
era una
Rinpoche,
cosa di
and also
onore
before that, it was like
avere i
something
voti, si prendeva,
of
si
honor to
faceva
take
tanta
vows,
fatica per
and
ottenere,
you
prendere certi
it
voti.
was like also difficult to
Oggi come
obtain
oggi
to take
prendere
some
i voti è
vows.
visto come una
Now
cosa un po'
that's seen to take
peso,
vows, it's like
c'è
seen
tanto
a bit
questo
as a weight.
come una
There
volta.
isn't
Poi
that
la
thing
presa
so
dei
much, and
voti
then they
si dice
take
che per poter prendere
of
i voti, per
vows.
esempio,
It is
dei
said, for example, that in order to take the Pratimoksha vows, which are to not kill, to not steal, to not lie, to not take intoxicating substances that take away the clarity of mind, and to have a sexual misconduct. Then there are also the other monastic vows. There are the Bodhisattva vows, which are the 18 root vows and the 46 minor vows. And then there are 19 tantric vows, 22 vows of the Mother Tantra, and so on. But in order to really take these vows, at the basis, you need the take of refuge. So what do we need vows for? To have a clear direction, but to take vows without committing to maintain them, it's really useless.
Prendendo rifugio si eliminano
By taking refuge,
karmiche generate in passato.
we eliminate the karmic obscurations accumulated in the past. And often here I see this wrong interpretation that, okay, then I do Namguru Bhyana Buddhaya, and I take refuge, and so I eliminated all the karma of the past. No.
Anche qualche giorno fa
Also a few days ago,
stavo traducendo
I was translating for Trija Rinpoche, and at the beginning of the teachings there was a little dog that someone brought to him, and he said, you know, there is this way of saying in Tibet that to bring dogs to the to animals to the teachings is a positive thing, because it helps animals to receive the imprints of the teachings of the Dharma, and this will make it so that they would have a good rebirth, and that would help them here and there. Trija Rinpoche said, okay, if it was so, then it would be better to be all reborn as animals, because then you just need to be present to receive the benefit of Dharma. Actually, it can happen that an animal has some imprints, and to be in the presence, that those imprints ripen up, yes, but the simple fact of being present doesn't mean that he's practicing Dharma, and that will grant a good rebirth and so on. But very often I see that we have these simplifications. And from the moment that I take refuge, and not formally but really, naturally I will get into a process to oppose to the force of the karmic forces that I created in the past. It's normal. If I practice the Dharma correctly, naturally I will recognize those behaviors that are not right, and I will take the commitment to not repeat them, and I will naturally make a process to purify those karmic obscurations. So it's not that I take refuge and then I just completely remove them. You accumulate easily a lot of merits. Also here, it's not that I take refuge and so I earn points. There was a friend that said, this story of the karma, I'm not really convinced, it seemed like the points of the supermarket. It's not really like that. These are oversimplifications that sometimes are made. And it doesn't seem to me that I bring this kind of attitude, but there is this thing often, like, okay, I am a Buddhist, so I earned a lot of merits, I took refuge and I earned a lot of merits, as if it was like a game of points. It's not about this, it's a matter of earning, getting familiarization with some positive aspects, to train with the body, speech and mind in virtuous actions, to generate a positive karmic force. And if I take refuge and my priority in life is the practice of Dharma, naturally I will have a more virtuous life. And this is one of the great benefits that happen. The next benefit that is said is that if one takes really refuge, cannot be damaged by human beings or spirits. What is said more than that is that when there is the take of refuge, that brings to a place of protection. There are many stories that we could share about this, but with the spirits there are many things, and also comes to my mind a recent case in Brazil, but now it's not the case to get into that. But there are many cases where a person takes refuge, really, and then when that person finds herself in sort of danger, then is protected. This happens in various ways. It reminds me of Guillermo with the horns, because he did like the little joke of taking some horns in Mongolia without recognizing that you just find them on the ground, without recognizing that were of a species that was in extinction. And as he got to Pekino, it was like really very close to being put in jail. And we also talked about the lawyers. Okay, they said contact your embassy, you have no way out. We stopped in the airport, and then I told him, okay, do this practice. And I told him to do 100, he did probably like 1,000, he didn't sleep at night. And so as he's like in the airport, there is like a red alarm ringing, because theoretically he couldn't get out of the country until that legal question was not solved. And then, okay, as they see this red light, and it was like, okay, just go through, and then he's here. There are many stories that happen, then everyone could interpret them as they want, but when there is like a sincere connection, when the practice is with the heart, when one really takes refuge, there is a level of protection that happens. And it's not that everything will always go right, everything will always be easy, but there is some protection happening.
Poi
Then the other benefits that are listed are you will obtain easily all the temporary and definitive goals, and you will obtain quickly enlightenment, which doesn't mean in 2 months. But what does this mean? If I take really refuge, the priority of my life becomes practicing generosity, morality, patience, enthusiastic effort, concentration, wisdom, and to cultivate love and gratitude. And that is the priority of my life. Naturally, I walk in that direction, and that will bring me towards that goal. If I spend my life where the priority is to avoid problems and to enjoy my pleasures, then I will just go around them. And the take of refuge is what changes our priority, and that's for that mainly. Once that we have taken refuge, there are those that are called the commitments that one should keep, should take. The commitments are divided in 2 types. There are the individual commitments and the general ones. By the individual ones, we mean about the commitment to take refuge in Buddha, Dharma and Sangha. Are divided in 2 types. They are about those that need to be avoided and those that needs to be done. So positive and negatives. Negative and positive. So we start with the negative ones. Once that I took refuge in Buddha, I shouldn't take refuge. Here the term that is used in mundane gods, but mainly I took refuge in Buddha, I relied upon Buddha. It's a bit like as if I go to a doctor, and I rely upon a doctor. In order for me to follow the healing process well, do I need to go to other 5 doctors doing different things, or do I need to rely on that doctor seriously? Maybe I could ask a doctor, do you think maybe we need to also know the perspective of someone else? But when we mix things too much, then that doesn't really work. So once that I take refuge on the Buddha, then I should maintain that line. Also what Tisha was saying, the Bodhisattva Garland, respect deeply all spiritual traditions and follow with determination the one that you prefer. So I respect everyone. Like once that I was in Nepal many years ago, and someone came to me and said, "Look, Lama, there is that master. There is a master of the tradition. I think Nimapa or Kagyu. I think it was Nima. He's giving this transmission in his whole life. He has the transmission to give. He has the permission to give this transmission only 2 times. This is the second one. These are very rare teachings. Do you want to go?" No. But why? Do you have something against him? No. For respect, I don't go because I cannot digest the food that I already have. I don't go to eat somewhere else and to take something else. To me, to go to someone else to take some teachings just in order to be there and to kind of collect of the images, the picture. I took this, I took that, it seems like a lack of respect. I don't take any initiation if I don't have the commitment to put that into practice. And it's like, once that I dig a well, once that I found water, I need to use it. It's pointless to just go on and dig other wells. The fact that I found water here and you found water there doesn't mean that my water is better than yours. But one just drinks the water that he found. So once that I find a path that works for me, I follow that. I look for 1,000 different things. Then I can, yes, also some things from other traditions, and yeah, absolutely yes. When I was in India, I translated from some texts of San Francis towards Tibetan. So we should be open, we should receive from many things, but we should have also a clear line. When we take refuge in the Dharma, the commitment that we should keep is to not harm other beings. The basic commitment in taking refuge in the Dharma is to avoid to do damage to others. If we take refuge in Dharma, as a matter of fact, we shouldn't, especially with intention, harm anyone. Then it can happen that non-intentionally one harms someone, physically, verbally, or in our way of behaving. Maybe someone doesn't like it, maybe I'm driving, maybe I end up killing some bugs. Many things can happen. To me, it happened to apologize with someone because my behavior in an unconscious way harmed someone. And so I ask sorry, I try to understand how can I not repeat it, can I learn from that to not repeat it. But once we take refuge in the Dharma, there is the commitment to not harm others. And when we take refuge in the Sangha, the commitment is that of avoiding here the way that is described absolutely is not suitable to our times and needs to be seen in another way. But we should avoid contexts that bring us out of our path, because often is put like in a religious way, but that's not the point. If I take refuge in Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, and I have the Dharma as a priority of my life, but at a certain point I am with more people that don't have anything to do with Dharma, and I am in that context for a long time, then there is a possibility that is not small that I allow myself to be influenced, and bit by bit I go get more distant from that path. So once that I take a path, then it's important to share also life and to be closer to people that share the same path, which doesn't mean that we shouldn't have friends outside of Buddhism. That we're not absolutely saying that, but we should be careful to not be with too much intensity and for a long time with in contexts that bring us away from our path. The affirmative commitments. By taking refuge in the Buddha, there is the commitment to consider any image of the Buddha as the Buddha himself. So I see the image of the Buddha and I treat that as if I was in front of the Buddha. Why? Because here we get into a whole discourse that we faced in the past that is about the commitment being and the wisdom being. When I see the image of a Buddha, to whom do I connect automatically? To Buddha. When I see the image of Lama Caroline, I connect with Lama Caroline. When I see the image of Trije Rinpoche, I connect with Trije Rinpoche, and so on. And so this means that the presence of the wisdom being comes together with the commitment being representing it. The picture in this case is the commitment being as a bridge, that when I see that image, then whether I want it or not, I connect with the person. On another level, can you see me?
Riuscite a correggere?
And are you able to connect with me as I connect with you or with any other person? But am I this body or am I something more than that? According to you,
È il corpo e basta?
it's just the body and that's it? No.
Quindi quando mi vedete
So when you see me
con i vostri occhi,
with
cosa
your
vedete?
eyes, what do you
Vedete il
see?
mio
Do
corpo
you
o
see my
vedete il
body
mio
or do
essere?
you see my being?
Vedete il mio corpo, però
You see
tramite
my
il mio
body,
corpo
but through
vi
my body you
connettate
connect
con
with
il mio essere.
my
Il
being.
mio essere
My
viene
being
chiamato
is
essere di
called the
saggezza,
wisdom
così
being,
come il vostro.
like yours.
E il corpo viene chiamato
And the
essere
body
dell'impegno,
is called the commitment being,
è il ponte.
is the bridge.
Quando io sento la voce di qualcuno che conosco, quella voce è il ponte, l'essere dell'impegno, che mi connette automaticamente con l'essere di saggezza. Vedo la foto, vedo il
So I see the picture, see the painting, I hear the voice, the name.
Quindi quando noi ci troviamo
So
dinanzi
when
a
we are
un'immagine
in
del
front
Buddha,
of
dei nostri maestri,
a
eccetera,
picture of of the
dobbiamo
Buddha, of
trattarli
our
come
masters
nella
and so on,
presenza del Buddha.
we should treat them as if we were in
Non
presence
dobbiamo
of
per
the
esempio
Buddha.
fare
We shouldn't, for
distinzione
example,
fra
make
una
distinction
statua
between
d'oro
a
piuttosto
golden
che di
statue
legno
or a
piuttosto
wooden
che di
statue
plastica.
or a
Il
plastic
materiale è più
statue.
prezioso
The
o meno, ma
material
non fa con
could
che
be
la statua abbia
more
un
or less
valore
precious,
maggiore o
but that
minore dal
doesn't make it
punto di
so
vista
that the
spirituale.
statue has more or less value
Tutti e
on
due
a
portano la
spiritual
presenza
level.
del Buddha.
They both bring in
Fungono da questo ponte
the
che
presence
finisce
of
l'essere
Buddha, they act
dell'impegno
as
per
this
l'essere di
bridge.
saggezza. Per questo che quando abbiamo le
So
immagini
that's why
di Buddha, dei
when
nostri
we have the
maestri,
image of
eccetera, non dovremmo
Buddha, of
trattarli
our
con
masters,
disrispetto,
we shouldn't
buttandoli da
treat them
qualunque
with
parte,
disrespect,
dicendo,
just throwing them
dobbiamo stare
somewhere.
molto
And
attenti. Una
should
volta
be
era
very
più facile
careful.
perché le immagini erano difficili da trovare,
Once it
a mano
was
o niente.
easier
Ormai con le
because like
stampe
images were
tutto è
more
un
difficult to
disastro.
find, but now with prints
Abbiamo le
is a
immagini
disaster. We have
dappertutto,
like
non
images
sappiamo cosa
everywhere.
farcene
We
con
don't know
troppe
what to do with
immagini.
them. We have too many images.
È molto più complesso.
It's much
Questo
more
impegno
complex.
sembra
So
semplice,
this
ma
commitment
nei
seems
tempi d'oggi
easy,
è
but
difficile.
actually today is more difficult.
Rispettare ogni
To respect
insegnamento,
any
ogni
teaching,
libro,
any book,
ogni rappresentazione
any
del Dharma
representation
come il
of the
Dharma
Dharma as the Dharma
Una volta
itself.
che io prendo rifugio nel Dharma,
Once that
ciò
I
che
took refuge in the
rappresenta il
Dharma,
Dharma
what
viene
Dharma
rispettato
represents
come il Dharma. Quindi per esempio a casa i
should be
libri del
respected
Dharma che mi
as
portano,
Dharma.
che
So, for
rappresentano
example,
quel
the books
sentiero,
of
lo metto
Dharma
con un po' più
that
di rispetto
represent
riguardo agli altri.
that path,
Faccio
when
una
I am
distinzione
at home, I
tra il
put them
mistero
like
sul libro
in a different
e
way
la
than the
questione
others. I don't sit
culturale
on the
che
book,
nella
and
cultura
it's also
orientale
a
è
cultural
diverso,
matter.
sarebbe
Like in
una
the
enorme mancanza di rispetto.
Eastern culture,
A me
to
mi è
sit on a
successo
book is
qua
an
invece
enormous
nell'altra cultura.
lack of
Mi è successo più
respect.
volte
Here
che
is a
entrai in
different culture.
chiesa
It
per
happened
qualche
many times that maybe I stepped into
cerimonia,
a church
qualcosa, e mi
for
sono
some
sentito
ceremony or
disagio
something,
quando ho
and I
visto
felt
che
uneasy when I
alcune
saw
delle
all those
preghiere di quel
little
giorno
books of
sono
the
vacche.
prayers
Ma come? La
on the
gente che si
benches.
siede,
But
che gli lascia
like
lì.
okay, but like people sitting there, and
Invece
but
quello che
actually
rappresenta le parole sacre va trattato
what
con rispetto.
represents sacred words needs to be treated with respect.
E poi
And then
rispettare ogni
to
simbolo che
respect
rappresenti la Sangha.
any symbol that represents Sangha.
Quindi nel caso
So,
degli
in the
insegnamenti
case
di
of
Pabongka
the
Rinpoche, la Sangha
teachings
era
of Pabongka
monastica.
Rinpoche, the Sangha was
Nel nostro
monastic.
caso,
In our
faccio un
case,
esempio
I
qualunque,
make
arriva
whatever
l'email,
example, you
le
get the
notizie del
email
centro.
of the news of the center,
Un attimo di rispetto.
you have a moment of respect.
È diverso.
It's
Se mi
different
arriva la
rather
pubblicità
than the
deve essere
advertisement of the supermarket.
c'è qualunque cosa. Poi qua
Anything,
volendo entrare
then
nei dettagli,
here,
c'è il
if we
fatto
want to
del
get into the
rispetto
detail, there is the
verso
fact of
ciò
the
che è di
respect
proprietà della
towards what
comunità
is
spirituale della Sangha.
the
Qua ci sono insegnamenti
property of the
per
Sangha
parlare che
community.
il quanto
And here
sia
there are
pesante
long teachings
il karma
talking
creato
about
dal
how
trattare
heavy
con
is the
mancanza di
karma
rispetto ciò che è di
accumulated by treating with disrespect
come se
what
fosse proprio,
belongs to
o
anyone,
utilizzare per
as
il
if
proprio
it was just
beneficio
one's own
senza
thing, or to use it
un'autorizzazione
for one's own benefit
dal
with no
collettivo. Ci sono
authorization
tante
from the
cose che
collective. There
vengono
are
a questo rispetto.
many things about
Però il
this.
punto
But the
fondamentale è
fundamental point
rispettare
is to
la
respect
Sangha,
the Sangha,
rispettare
to
ciò che
respect
rappresenta la
what
comunità.
represents, what the community
Poi
represents.
gli impegni
And
generali
then there are
abbiamo
general
ricordare le
commitments
qualità
to
dei tre
remember the
gioielli e
qualities of the
prendere
three jewels
costantemente rifugio,
and to constantly
quindi
take refuge, and
recitare
so
più
to
volte al
recite
giorno,
more
prendere
times
rifugio nel Buddha,
each
prendere
day. To
rifugio nel
take, I
Dharma,
take
prendere
refuge in the
rifugio
Buddha,
nella
in the
Sangha.
Dharma, in the Sangha.
Quando mangiamo,
When we
offrire il
eat,
cibo, in realtà
to
più
offer
che
the
altro
food,
si utilizza il momento del mangiare come
actually
un'opportunità per
we
ricordarci del
use
nostro
the moment
percorso.
of eating
Quindi
when we
quando noi
eat to
mangiamo,
remember
facciamo,
ourselves
offriamo Buddha,
of our
Dharma e
path.
Sangha,
So
non è che
when we
Buddha,
offer
Dharma e
to
Sangha
Buddha,
fanno
Dharma, and
tutto
Sangha,
del nostro cibo.
it's not that they
Il
get
Dharma
nourished
come mangia il
of
Dharma?
our food. How does
Se ti
Dharma
immagini
eat?
il Buddha mangiando,
Maybe okay,
la
the
Sangha
Buddha I can
mangiando, è più
imagine
facile, ma il
Buddha eating or the Sangha, but how does Dharma eat? So the main point is because, okay, I'm eating normally like 3 times a day, and it takes like a snack as a chance more. So what happens is that I offer the food, but mostly as a matter of taking refuge. That's a further opportunity to reconnect to my path and to transform that ordinary act into something that connects me with our path. To remember oneself the benefits of taking refuge, so to put ourselves back on the path in the morning and also in the evening, when we before going to sleep, we remember ourselves because our tendency is to forget bit by bit, to take for granted. And that's why the last commitment is to not abandon Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, which doesn't mean, which is not like a formal matter. It means like, what is my priority in life? And that's not easy, but it's also not impossible. And that's why when we talk about the take of refuge, which is one of the first steps, at the end means to revisit our priorities. And we shouldn't reinvent the wheel. Someone else already invented it. Let's use it. There is a path that someone transmitted that for more than 2,500 years, many people put it into practice and it worked for them. It can also work for us. Then we need to make our own experience. An example of how Dharma works is when one came to me a while ago. Someone came to me and said, "Look, Lama, I really thank you a lot, because since when I follow the teachings of the Dharma, my life has changed. Before," I use the words that he said, "before my life was shit. I had problems at work, health problems, difficulties in the family, and since when I'm practicing Dharma and all the rest, my life is still shit, in the sense that the problems are still there at work and family, health, but I'm happy. I'm good." This means that the Dharma works. Our goal is not to change the world around us, but to change how we live the world, and consequently the world changes. Because the world around us is a reflection of how each one lives internally one's own world. And for this, we seriously take refuge, and we should try to revisit what our priorities are. And let's remember once again that in order to take refuge once today, but let's remember every day that samsara sucks. Enough with it. There's like a place where there is like some tiredness, like in Tibetan is said, like some nausea. Enough. Samsara is not outside. Because sometimes I hear like something, this is a samsaric place. There are no samsaric places. What exists are the inner vicious cycles of mental defilements, cycles of actions and results of suffering, our own samsara. So when we look inside of ourselves and we are able to see those cycles of our own mental defilements, and we say, okay, enough, I don't want that anymore, I want to get out of it. At that point I ask help deeply, and I start putting into practice one step after the other, remembering ourselves, and please to do that with a lot of love towards oneself. And to do that with a lot of love means to welcome oneself for what I am. I don't impose to myself an animalized image of what I should already be. I welcome myself for what I am, and I redirect myself towards what I want to become. And this is part of the take of refuge, and I have trust that I can do it, remembering that it's never too early and never too late. But one thing is for sure, if we don't do it, no one will do it for us. We can be friends of the Lama, we can live in the temple, we can live in Tibet or whatever. If we are not putting into practice, no one can do it for us. And unfortunately, many times it happens that those that are closest sometimes are those that practice less. I don't want to generalize, but what happens is that, okay, I'm so friend of the Lama that I believe that through kind of like an osmotic process it works. I already feel that I'm closer, okay, we eat the pizza together or whatever. And then I forget to practice. This is a matter that comes from the times of Buddha. The assistant of Buddha, Ananda, that was when Ananda became assistant of Buddha in the Sangha, there were many candidates to be his assistant, and Buddha chose Ananda, and Ananda didn't want to do it. And Ananda apparently had a difficult character.
Si racconta che Buddha disse no, voglio Ananda.
And the Buddha said, okay, I want Ananda. And Ananda was like, no, why? It's like the greatest honor. No, I have my own conditions, even, okay. And among the conditions that he set, there was like, okay, me, I need to have the permission to be present in any context where Buddha will be. There's no such thing as a private meeting with someone, and I should be able to be there. And whoever wants to talk to Buddha needs to go through me. And but for some reason Buddha chose Ananda. Anyway, Ananda played this role well. We had like a very difficult character, but he was like very loyal. But when Buddha died and the disciples reunited, Ananda didn't have the realization, didn't meditate, because he was his whole life there serving, doing practical things, cooking, and no, he wasn't cooking because okay, it was just but he was doing many things, never sat down to meditate really. But he was the only one that was with Buddha in all moments. And if one doesn't reach a certain state of spiritual development, doesn't obtain a state that allows him to access to the complete memory of anything that he listened to. So the sutras, the teachings of Buddha, came from those that reached this state of Arat, and so everyone sat around Ananda. Okay, now Ananda, you need to meditate because we need to know all the teachings that Buddha gave, where you were there and we weren't there, so and you need to remember them. So now you need to meditate. And they were just sitting there until Ananda managed to. So at the end, either we do it for ourselves or it doesn't happen. Either it's me with myself, facing my own anger, facing my own wounds, developing love, compassion, patience, to walk on this path. Or it's not going to happen. No one can do it for us.
Però noi lo possiamo fare.
But we can do it. And when we take refuge, that means that we commit on this. It's a commitment that we take with ourselves. One of the parts that are not easy, because that means to look at oneself in the eyes and to say to oneself, okay, until now I played, now we really get serious.
E siamo pigri.
And we are lazy. And it's not always easy. But when there is that commitment, that there is like a before and an after, that's when it changes. And the take of refuge is something that we repeat and repeat until it becomes more and more deep, something that becomes more and more part of myself.
Io volevo, se qualcuno può chiamare,
someone can call Geshe,
che facciamo le dediche.
So we make the dedications and the Lamrim dedications. Then we would make the mandala offering of Thanksgiving. Then we have this moment with Geshe and Thubten Kunsang. As I said before, as I mentioned before, I also
creare questo momento
wanted
anche
to
per
create
voi
this
per creare
moment
una
also for you, to
connessione
create a
con lui.
connection with him.
Dice Thubten del monastero di Serpong,
Is from the monastery of
che è un
Serpong.
posto dove anche
It's
tutti
a
sono
place
benvenuti
where
di andare,
everyone is
passare
also
lì, che è
welcome to
bellissimo.
go in the south of India, very beautiful.
C'hanno anche momenti che sono
There are
la
also
settimana di Buddha
moments
della medicina e
where
tante
there's
cose
like the
molto
week
belle.
of medicine Buddha and many
Geshe Thubten
beautiful
era un
things.
amico da
And he
tantissimi anni.
has been a
Oltre che
friend for
essere
many
un
years, and
amico,
other than
discepolo di
being
Lama
a friend
Ganchen,
and disciple of Lama
lui è un
Ganchen,
praticante
he is a
meraviglioso, un
wonderful
esempio per tutti
practitioner, an
noi.
example for all of us.
Ed è anche
And he's also,
lui ha voluto
he
offrire
wanted to offer
casa sua
his
in
house
India
in India
per
for
fare per la reincarnazione
the
di Lama
reincarnation of
Ganchen.
Lama Ganchen.
Quando sarà,
So
se avrà
when it will
bisogno,
be,
senza forzare
if he
nulla,
will
lui ha
need,
una
without
casettina
forcing
fatta
anything,
bellina,
he has a
tutto
very
con tutto,
nice
poi le
little
ha fatto un
house with
documento
anything,
spiegando
and made a
tutto quello che ha
document
offerto, eccetera.
explaining anything,
Quindi
everything that he offered. And
lo facciamo questo momento
so
di
we
ricevere
have
questo
this
dono
moment
come
of
Sangha,
receiving this gift
ok? In cui
as a
lui
Sangha
vuole formalizzare.
that he wants to formalize.
Poi ricordo che questo librettino
Then
che è stato fatto
I also remember you
da
that
Guillermo e Renata con
these
tutte le
books that
preghiere
was made
dedicate a
by
Lamrim,
Guillermo and Renata
se
with all
uno
the
vuole
prayers
dare
dedicated to
continuità,
Lamrim. If
eccetera,
one
è una
wants to
cosa
give
bella da
continuity,
vedere. Ok?
that's something also nice to have.
Perciò facciamo le dediche finali.
So let's make the final dedications.
Sāshipū ki chōshī me tō Chāmārī rābā līngshī Nīdē gyēṃ pādī Sāṅgē shīntū Mikte ulvarki drokunanam dashingla chopar shoyedam guru ratna mindrala kam niryatayami Terner nindom bele tsonye ni katra yamba kanshi sakpate Lomi mari gidon drowana namdren gyawe wambura dagyurchi Terma sonwe tsera kuntu yang jambe yang Gesone tempe rimpa Kunsang lamge che Nyene drupe gyalnama nyeche sho Rangi chishin tokpe lamge ne shukja tsewe Mumba selche ne gyawe tempa yunrin zingyur che tempa rinchen choge ma kyapam kyap kya nyampra gyurwe chokter ni ningche chembo yirava kyopayi Pende dirte sewara chebra sho seche gyawe mechon chinlele Lektro chancho lamge rimpe kyan tarde namge yela palter shin Gyawe tsepa yurin kyongyur chi lamsan drupe tungen drupche chin Galken selche mida mimin kun tsera kuntu gyawe ngakpa Namda lamdan chalwar margyur che kanse tekpa chela che chu tsulshin drubla tsumpa teyetse Thubten namge takto chokche Trashi gyatso chukun kyabkyurchi Kyewa kuntu yanda lama dan drame chiki pela longchechi Sadan lamge yunte rabzo ne dorje change kopa Nyurtoba sho nimo dele tsendele nime kuyan delekshi ninsen takto delekpe kuncho sumke chingelo kuncho sumke ngodrubotsol kuncho sumke trashisho. Io volevo ricordare una cosa brevemente. Quando noi insegniamo il buddismo, il Dharma,
When we teach Buddhism, Dharma, for example in the West, here,
giustamente viene trasmesso ciò che è nella capacità di
is,
ognuno di
is,
ascoltare, di capire.
is transmitted what is in the capacity of each one to be able to learn, to understand and learn, but there is a whole part of study, of knowledge that is very deep,
Che non sono tanti che
that
hanno la capacità di farlo.
not many have the capacity of going through it, but this is fundamental that this knowledge stays alive.
Quindi dove Geshe
So where Geshe lives, in the monastery of Serpong, like the monastery also of Shargaden and others, the fact that there are people there dedicating their lives uniquely to this knowledge and this practice is one of the things that makes it so that this knowledge remains for the future generations. Because I don't know how many of us have the possibility of dedicating a whole lifetime to practice and to knowledge of Dharma. Geshe, for example, does it, and seriously does it, very seriously. And for example, he showed me his schedule of a year. Okay, there's like 28 days to do work here and there, to organize things, and then there's like 60 days of retreat. But always like that, with a level of seriousness that is incredible, and incredible humility also. And has also a subtle level, at a subtle level, to have people maintaining this quality of life, of practice, allows us also to be able to grow ourselves, and that's fundamental in the Dharma. And so Geshe has these qualities, and not only that, has a strong connection with Pabongka Rinpoche, and is a disciple of him and friend, helped him a lot when we, for many years, did work of helping action in the south of India with distance adoption. The right wing, the right arm was always Geshe Thubten. He built like a school and published so many books, and it's really incredible all that he did, and we had the honor of having him here. Tomorrow he will leave. He had been here for about 47 days, and for the majority of those, it was mostly doing the retreat of Medicine Buddha and Lama Tsongkhapa, and we are deeply grateful. And he practically gave anything material that he owns, he offered that to Lama Ganchen, and particularly dedicated to the reincarnation of Lama Ganchen. And also seeing this as, okay, I say this, but when tomorrow will not be here, I want it to be clear. And in the monastery, it's not that there is like a so he made this document, he made many copies, he made it understand that, okay, inside there is his house with the rooms that are in the house and all the objects inside. So a part is for his disciples and a part for Lama Ganchen, and that is something very, very special for all of us, but also as an example. So today I wanted to have this moment, one for honoring him and his choice, and also for all of you to be able to also create somehow a connection. And when we talk about Dharma practitioners, I have been in many monasteries and met many people, but few times I had the chance to be in touch with really serious practitioners like Geshe Thubten Kunsang. So it's an opportunity for us to have him here today.
Jindala, Alessio, così, conso niemdo gichala piushana, ra? Ok. Vedi, questo è il documento dove Geshe descrive.
This is the document where Geshe describes
Kanchen larang che che tu pue toshun kak shuksos. Quindi questa è la lista delle
So
cose
this is
che
the
lui ha
list of the
offerto
things that he offered to
a casa
Ganshal
di Lama Ganchen.
Labrang, to the house of
Sopra c'è
Lama
la
Ganchen.
foto della sua
On
casetta.
top there is the picture of the house, the little house.
E poi in fondo
And
c'è
then
il suo
in the
timbro,
bottom
la
there
sua
is
firma,
the
tutto.
the signature and
Diceva,
everything.
all'interno c'è
So it says, okay, in the
statue di
beginning
Lama
there are the
Tsongkhapa e i suoi
statues of
discepoli,
Lama
la
Tsongkhapa
statua
and
di
his
Buddha
disciples, the
Shakyamuni,
statue of
la
Buddha
statua di
Shakyamuni,
Tara,
the statue of
la
Tara,
statua
the statue
del protettore del
of the protector of
Dharmapala,
the Dharma, of the Dharma,
tre set completi
three
di
complete
coppette di
sets
offerta
of
in argento,
offering
due
bowls
set
in
completi
silver,
di
two
coppette di
complete
offerta in
sets
rame,
of copper,
mulgi chokon se ne caresi so. Ali chungo tre set completi di
three complete
offerte
sets
per fare
of
la luce di
offerings
candele di luce in argento,
for candles in silver,
l'offerta
the
interna
inner offering
in
in
argento, dorje,
silver,
campana,
dorje
damaru,
and bell, damaru,
sangding chewa dunzar, altri sette
seven
completi di coppette di offerta
sets,
in rame,
other 7 sets of
sangding quelli più
copper,
grandi 7, quelli più piccoli 20. Mulgi chakyak sena. Anche le coppette per bere
also the bowls to drink the tea they traditionally offer to the masters, one silver, and then two other sets of dorje and bell, two silver bowls. Then in some ceremonies like a small silver spoon is used, so there is also that for these ceremonies of long life. Then a mirror, a silver mirror,
I due vasi cerimoniali,
two ceremonial vases,
poi 70
then 70
portacandele
uh,
anche di metallo, gli
things to
ornamenti
all the
per fare la
candles,
puja
then
del
ornaments
fuoco.
to the fire puja,
Tutto il terreno intorno
all the land outside, around the house,
e lascia anche
and he also leaves from his side a budget, like a basis, so 100,000 rupees as a basis for the expenses of the house. And he says that, okay, the part where there is like the kitchen and a little part around is left for his disciples that are there. So this is on the side of Geshe Thubten Kunsang.
prendete insieme. Insieme. Geshe Rinpoche kutse rabten chi namka tinle chokchur gepa da lo san tempe. Takto ne gyorci. Volevo anche ricordare a tutti
I
di
would also like
dedicare
to remember everyone to dedicate
per la lunga vita di Geshe La.
for the long life of Geshe La.
Quando io dico
When I say
dello sforzo
of the enthusiastic
noi facciamo
effort,
tanta fatica a
we have a
meditare un po' al mattino
hard time to
piuttosto che
meditate a little bit in the
tutto
morning,
quello che ho
or
detto che Geshe La
everything
fa
that I say that
è
Geshe La
stato
does
fatto anche dopo
was
che ha
also
avuto
done
l'infarto
after
dopo
he had
la seconda
a heart
dose del
attack, after the
vaccino.
second
Non
doses
importa,
of the
ha
vaccine,
avuto
but anyway, that
un
doesn't matter.
ictus,
He had a heart attack,
è
a
stato
stroke.
paralizzato
He
a
was
metà per un
half
bel po'
paralyzed
e
for a
anche in
long
mezzo a tutto
time, and
questo ha
even in the
fatto
middle
tutti
of
i
all of
ritiri,
that,
non
he
ha mai
did
smesso di
all
fare
the
queste
retreats,
pratiche,
never stopped
tutto
with his
adesso sta
practices and
molto
everything.
molto
Now
meglio
he's doing
come
much
stava
better
prima,
than
quindi anche per la sua
how he
salute
felt before. So he also,
lui
for
fa
his
anche ogni
health,
anno un
we dedicate
ritiro
every
di
year.
circa un mesetto
He
di
also
pratica di lunga
does
vita
a
che faceva una
retreat
volta con il
of
nome di Lama Ganchen,
long life
dedicato a Lama
practice
Ganchen, che adesso fa
dedicated to
con il
Lama
mio
Ganchen
nome
that now
ogni
he
volta
does
che
with my
dedica
name
ogni
every time
anno,
dedicating.
quindi è una persona
So he's
profondamente
a
connessa con noi, un
profoundly
esempio per
connected
tutti,
person and an example also
quindi
for
anche per
everyone,
tutti noi
and also for
avere
all of
qua
us to have here
qualcuno che ha questa
someone that
serietà
has
di
this
pratica è un
seriousness
esempio
of
importante
practice
per
is an important example for everyone.
so konso shuya geshe la ge nezu di geshu tuji che shuya chigda ani kebar tu geshe la range nganso mikbe sambo chire nyamle na ya ngone tangne gi tal haksam sheda kangi tone ta halebachre ane tanda dikesan chabe so shabadi konsobet shuda tamatang shabadi gidiresha. E questo è perché
And this is because
Geshe, vedete qua,
here, okay, you see
qualche pagine ci sono qua, no?
there are a few
Queste
pages here,
sono le
right?
sue pratiche
These
quotidiane,
are his
giornaliere.
daily
Qua
practices,
sono tutte le sadhane che
all
lui
the
fa,
sadhanas that he
che lui
does,
ha chiesto a noi di
that
rimpaginare,
he asked
stampare
us
in
to
carta di riso più
impaginate and
leggero.
print on a
E
rice
quindi alla
paper,
fine
which
è
is
stato
lighter.
più un dono per
So
noi che per lui,
it was
perché
more a
facendo
gift
questo lui ha anche
for
spiegato
us
tutta
than
la
for
parte
him,
più
because as he
tradizionale,
was
come viene
doing
fatta
it,
l'impaginazione,
he also
suoni
explained all
cose,
the
eccetera,
traditional
eccetera.
part of
E
how the
quindi noi abbiamo
impagination
qui
is
ad
done and
Albagnano, quindi
everything. So
stampato per lui,
here we
fatto il
printed in
lavoro per lui,
Abbagnano,
e questo
and
è quello che lui
did
utilizza
this
poi in tutte
work
le sue
here, and
pratiche
that's what he
quotidiane.
uses in all his daily practices.
Jetsun lame kutse rapten chi namkar tinle chokchur gepa dan losan tempe dreme drowe munse tatu neg nimo dele tsendele nime kunyan dele ninsen taktu dele pe kuncho sumki jingi lop kuncho sumki trashi sho. Grazie Geshe. Con questo concludiamo questo
With
momento.
this, we conclude this moment.
Anche l'altra volta,
Also, the other time when we were in India, I got really emotional with Geshe,
ed è veramente
and
importante
it's really important for us to have these examples, because
una cosa è parlare,
one thing is to just talk, because once in Tibet there was the great meditator here and there. Another thing is to really have people that have a level of practice that is deep and that do it seriously, with humility. Also here in Abbagnano we have Tenzin, that has just finished 3 years of retreat here in Abbagnano. He's a wonderful person. There is Geshe Sampunsok, ended 6 years, now a few days ago started another retreat of 2 years. Then for me, I have to be here and I am very happy with that, but sooner or later I would also close myself somewhere. But what I wanted to say is that it's beautiful for us to have these examples. Then me, I know the majority of you don't, but for example, the morning ceremony, those that were present here, actually, there is one of the most important masters of the south of India that is here with us. There is Kunsang Rinpoche, who was abbot of the monastery of many years and is the one of the most important philosophy masters in India. As Geshe Thubten Kunsang is also one of the most important ones. Also Punsok, everyone wants him to teach everywhere, but we have it here with us. Also many very important characters with a important level of practice and knowledge, and for me the fact that the center can also give them the opportunity, that's a way that comes back to us, and it's a part of which we don't talk about and the majority of us don't see, in the sense that the center, other than doing all that it does, it also creates the opportunity for practitioners like them to do longer retreats and taking care of the logistics of the organization, of covering the costs and everything, to allow that to exist. It's not like, okay, if I lived like that, I could also practice. But if we see it also, Geshe has an attitude with money, because like His point is that, okay, money is necessary to do what I want to do. How many times I told him, Geshe, I help you with something. No, I already have what I need for the trip. Then he insists, I send him something, and then he says, oh look, what you gave me, I donated it somewhere else. Because he has a strong attitude of freedom, like I'm not the things that I own. This last act that he did, it's not an act like, okay, I want to die. It's an act like, okay, I don't wait to do the commitments of this life. So he had like a commitment with Lama to do a medicine Buddha retreat here. He did it. Then with Lama Ganchen I had another commitment of doing a Vajrayogini retreat, and now he goes in India to do it. So what is important for me, I do it now also, so to offer the house and all of that is really an example for all of us. So also for here at the beginning of Buddhism, having people close to us, having this deeper practice is also an inspiration. I thank you a lot of being here together, not just to be here physically today, which is also very, very good and important to be in presence together, but also to walk on the same path. The only reason for which I am here and we are here is that we are all here and you are here. And so this is something that we shouldn't forget about, the mutual trust that we have. We talked about refuge because I have trust that you all and we all can do it, and this is something important. Now let's make the last dedications and then we conclude. Then who wants to come for to say hi quickly is welcome.
Kuyan delek shin Ninsen takto delek pe Kuncho sumki chingi lob Kuncho sumki ngodrubut sol Trashi shon Al-alba,
dawn or dusk, the night or midday, may the three jewels grant us their blessings. May they help us to achieve all realizations and to sprinkle the path of our lives with various signs of auspiciousness.
Tercenceresi Kempe Wampo Jampe Liang Dupung Malu Jom Tse Sangwe Kanchen Enkepe Tsogen En Tsong Kapa Lo Sang Antrakpe Shabla Asolvade. Ripetete dopo di me.
Repeat after me.
Sem Chö Sudro. Chö Lam Tudro. Lam La Parce. Myong Arshon. Possa la
May
mente.
the mind become the Dharma.
Possa il Dharma.
May the Dharma become the path.
Possa il
May the path be free from interferences.
Grazie a tutti. E ci vediamo anche domani mattina.
See you also tomorrow morning, and then the whole summer I will be here together with you.